All right, guys, so this is kind of an unexpected video. I wasn't initially planning on filming this, but there are a couple clips I wanted to take for documentation purposes, so I figured why not try to film the whole thing, and maybe we'll upload it as just kind of a workshop video. But in front of me, I've got my two-wheel drive Slash. This is kind of coming fresh off our track day video, which at this time we've not uploaded yet. But in that track day, I was really excited to try out the two-wheel drive because I had just installed my GTR shocks and had not driven on track with it yet, and was hoping that would help the performance because the first time I drove it on track, I kept bending shocks and didn't really like how it was driving. Well, this time around, the jump landings and takeoffs and everything were definitely an improvement, but it still felt like it had just kind of dull, unresponsive steering, and really just was still not in love with the way it was driving. Loved the 4x4's performance, but this still left something to be desired. Now, I played with my front end alignment a little bit. That helped improve it, but I feel like I need to address it with some parts. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, is throwing a few upgrades at it and seeing if I can improve the steering feel and performance. So let's see what we're going to be working with today. First thing, kind of boring. My motor came loose and backed off the motor plate, and I stripped out my spur at the very end of the track day. So picked up a spur at the track, and I'm just going to throw that in. Nothing too cool there. But here's kind of the main event. So my car already has the better Bellcrank. If you guys have an older two-wheel drive Slash, you would have that white plastic Bellcrank. This is the it's more based off the 4x4's Bellcrank. It has the integrated servo saver. It doesn't have very much slop in it. I think it feels pretty good, but I thought I might as well try this. It should be tighter with less slop. I'm going to be eliminating the servo saver, so that will obviously reduce some slop too. And kind of what I'm hoping for is that this will be heavier than the plastic rack, because one thing I feel like this is lacking is there's just not enough weight up front, and I don't want to just add like lead weights or something. I would rather just put slightly heavier parts in it to kind of naturally shift that weight bias forward. So one of the things I'll be doing in this video is weighing the aluminum Bellcrank versus the plastic Bellcrank. So if this is the same weight or lighter, I'll probably still put it in, but I'm really hoping it's heavier. Otherwise, I'll be kind of sad. To go along with that, since this doesn't have a servo saver, I feel like I would just end up destroying the plastic geared stock servo, which is still working well, but I'm also thinking that throwing in the 2075R from the 4x4 Ultimate, this is supposed to be faster, so I'm kind of hoping to get, I guess, a few things out of this. Faster steering, which should help that dullness I was experiencing. A tiny bit more weight from the metal gears. I'll also be weighing this. And then thirdly, just allowing me to, eliminate the servo saver and hopefully not strip any gears, since those will be metal. So that's it for my kind of Traxxas parts. And then something that's been really frustrating me are the rear hinge pins backing out. I haven't had any issues with the front because I have the aluminum caster blocks. Those screws are Loctited, so I haven't had those back out. And then the center are E-clips. But my rear hinge pins, it felt like every 5 laps, these hinge pins were backing out at the knuckle and the transmission, and it's just a total pain. I haven't tried Loctiting them or anything, but Alex told me about this kit, which are just like captured pins. They have little lock nuts on the end. So I'm going to be throwing this kit in. And then in my quest to take this platform out of the early 2000s. I'm replacing the fiberglass tie bar with an aluminum one. So this is also from STRC. I think it'll just look nicer, and fingers crossed that it's a little bit heavier. So I'm gonna weigh this and that. So I'm thinking probably first I'll do the spur and the hinge pins, just get the truck functional, and then I'll work on the front end. And I'm gonna weigh each thing individually, and then I'll kind of total it up all together and hopefully add, you know, at least like 100 grams or more of weight up front. We'll see how much it comes out to. Oh, and then also before I start taking it apart, I'm gonna record a video of the speed of the steering, bone stock, and then after these upgrades. So I'm gonna try to, I think, set up a time lapse here. We'll see how it goes. All right, first things first, let's do the steering speed test. So this is with the stock 2075 servo, and the, like I said, it's kind of the revised Bellcrank. It's got that integrated servo saver, not on the servo horn. So let's see. It's like a pretty slick table here. Let me make sure it's planted, and here is what we are working with. So honestly, that feels like it's reasonably quick. I mean, it's not terribly slow, but on track, it definitely felt just unresponsive. So let's, yeah, I haven't done the spur or the hinge pins yet, so I'll do that, and then we will come back to the front and see what kind of improvement we get. All right. So I haven't decided if I'm actually gonna do like a time lapse or anything. Probably record it just as like a full video, and we'll see. I might end up turning it to a time lapse, who knows. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull both the wheels off, because I'm gonna do those hinge pins too while I'm back here. And you can see I'm using the Traxxas stand. I really like this thing, honestly. It's perfect for the slashes. My Outcast actually fits on it well too. Does not work for the UDR. The UDR's weight balance is, it's like with how the chassis is, you need to set this so far forward that it ends up just tipping to the rear, and it's got so much droop in the rear too that it doesn't balance right. It ends up touching the ground, being weird. But this is perfect because, you know, with the wheels off, you can easily kind of rotate it and move, and makes it easier to work on the suspension and everything too. Yeah, let's go ahead. We're gonna do the spur first. I apologize, you probably won't really be able to see a whole lot of what I'm doing. Maybe I will end up moving the camera around. Because if you're wondering what tools I use these Dynamite hex drivers. They're not the best. They strip pretty easily, especially the smaller sizes, like the 1.5 mil and the 2. They're really cheap though, so if you're just getting started out, I think they're only like 15 or 16 bucks for the whole set. So they're like a half or a third of the price of some of the other options. I probably will end up upgrading them at some point, but right now it's really not bad. There we go, 2 screws, got the spur cover off. So what ended up coming loose on me were these 2 screws here. Neither of them fell off. They just backed out pretty significantly, so the motor was all wobbling around. And To my surprise, it really didn't like destroy the spur or anything. It did damage a few of the teeth, and a spur gear is like $3, so I figured there's really no point in stringing this one out and trying to get it to work. I feel like I'm better off just replacing it and not having to worry about it. I'm also gonna remove the screws that backed off and Loctite those. So one thing I need to do is I need to remove the spring. It kind of slipped there. Didn't remember what I had my slipper set to. It felt like it was maybe a half turn off full tight. So we'll have to do that. I'm just removing the nut. Oh, this might be kind of hard. I need to put my wheels back on actually, because it's just turning the whole transmission. There's the spring and nut off, and then the whole spur and half the slipper come with it. Friction pads look a little dingy. Truth be told, I don't really know much about those. I'm just gonna leave them be. Don't have any extra slipper parts anyway, so we're just gonna go ahead and leave it as is. All right, well, we got the 3 screws off. The clutch disc doesn't want to come off. Oh, there we go. So I was able to push on the bearing, that little bearing, and that popped out. So here, yeah, I don't know if that's gonna focus, but really it's not in bad shape. Like I said, we are gonna swap that. So I should have grabbed some scissors. Pushing that clutch disc in. Bearing still feels good. It's looking a little dirty. There you go, pretty darn easy. And then we're just gonna slide that right back on there. Take the spring, pop that back over the bearing, and then grab that nylon nut. And there's so yeah, trying to tighten that nut with the wheels off. That spins the diff. So I'm gonna get the weight of the car back down. Go ahead and tighten that up. And then the way I had it set was going full tight and then backing it off a half turn. That. So there you go. Easy as pie. Okay. And then, like I said, we're just gonna pop those 2 motor mount screws because I'm gonna put some Loctite on those. These wheels can come back off now. Yeah, these do not look like they had any Loctite from the factory. Let me go grab my Loctite. I use a little disposable tube of Loctite that I got from work because something about just paying for Loctite just doesn't really sit right with me. And this one has the fixed mesh plate in it, which I actually did not realize was a thing on the 2-wheel drive. Maybe it's only that way for the Magnum transmission, I'm not really sure. Oh yeah, it's the way on mine, so I don't have to worry about gear mesh. I do appreciate that. I don't love setting gear mesh. Guess I'm just not that confident in it. There we go. Motor screws are nice and tight. Go ahead and put the cover back on. All right, there you go. So yeah, that was really the only thing that broke on the track was the spur. So if I wasn't doing any upgrades, I would be, ready to bash again and go race. But do have some other things to do. So now let's actually get into the more fun stuff. So I'm gonna do the hinge pins in the rear first. Now, looks like they're all pretty much this. Okay, so there's a smaller diameter one and a larger diameter one. I'm guessing the small diameter one is for the front knuckle, because that one's kind of weird. This shorter, yeah, so the shorter, fatter one is the rear outer. And then these longer ones, yeah, so the longer ones, there's two different lengths. I'm gonna guess that the longest is for the rear inner, and that appears to be the case. It's gonna be a tight fit. So two of these nuts are shorter, two of these nuts are smaller. Those are for the front outer hinge pins, which I probably won't be using because I really haven't had any problems with the other ones backing out. So I think I'll just leave those be. Yeah, the rears are gonna be my focus. So let's pop out one of the rear outers. Let's go. Fitting really tight. Here's what's happening. I'm just like kind of spinning it. It does not want to come out of the knuckle. The threads are disengaged from the arm. There we go. Just kind of twist and yank it. It's maybe a little bit corroded, but not too bad. A little bit of wear on the aluminum knuckle here, just from debris kind of getting wedged between it and the arm. Oh, should I grease these? Now these are a nylon nut, so I'm thinking I probably don't need to apply any Loctite to them. Just gonna leave them. So I don't want to over tighten them, because you'll end up kind of squeezing the arm, so I think that feels good. Knuckle still, yeah, feels good. Doing the inner on that side now. That one's not corroded. I think that corrosion just has to do with the aluminum hub. So let's see, which did we say here? Yeah, definitely the longest pins are what you're gonna want to use in the rear. Seems like it's gonna be kind of hard to fit in though, because it's just a little longer than stock. I really don't want to have to take off the rear bumper, but it's kind of looking like we might have to. Yeah, I'm gonna undo the bottom section of the rear bumper, and hopefully I can swing it swing it up and out of the way. We'll see if that works. So I just removed, yeah, look at that. So I just removed the little shoulder screw from right here on each side of the rear bumper. That lets you swing it up, and then you can get that hinge pin more level. And yeah, look at that, it slides right up. Beautiful. Oh boy, now there's not very much room right there. This may prove to be difficult. I was using the wheel wrench before to hold the nut while I tighten it. Let's see. Ruh-roh. Do not appear to have an open-ended wrench. Yeah, this is a, I think a 5mm, 5.5mm nut maybe. So I'm gonna need to grab a wrench. Yeah, let me come back with a wrench here. I'm gonna pause the video and go hunting. All right, I found it. This is an ancient Traxxas relic wrench. I wish I could tell you what truck it came with. Might have been my Bandit or my 16th Rally. I'm pretty sure one on this side is the right one. Yeah, the larger of the two is correct. I keep this up with my drift car because it works for the drift car turnbuckles. It comes in handy for stuff like this. Yeah, so it fits real tight in there, but it does not actually hit the body or anything. Feels like it's sized well too. Doesn't really have any slop. Just that little bit of front to back play that it's always had. All right, let's do the next side. All right, that outer one came out a lot easier than the other side. Kind of blowing some of that dust out of there. All right, easy. Now this inner one I'm a little worried about because this one is by the motor. And I don't know if I will quite have the clearance. Cool. I was worried that I was gonna have to unbolt the motor. All right, a little tight going under the motor, but it wasn't bad. Didn't quite leave enough room for the nut though. Yeah, getting that nut started is finicky. There's just so little room in between the arm and the chassis, but we got it. Cool, there we go. Just throw these shoulder screws back in that we removed from the bumper. Cool, so I'm really hoping that these work. If they still back out, I might try Loctite on them, but the nylon should do enough. And really the reason why the originals back out is because they thread into the arm. They don't have a nut, so that arm is kind of applying torque to it. They really only loosen on one side. I think it's like the passenger side, because just the way the suspension articulates, it's loosening that screw as you go. So with these, with the nut being outside, and there's no threads actually in the arm, we should not have that, like any torque applied to the nut. but time will tell. Yeah, there we go, super easy. Suspension still smooth. Throw these rear wheels on because we're not coming back here. Now the front, this is gonna be quite a bit more involved here because I'm gonna be doing the Bellcrank. I feel like the servo I could probably just rip out of there. But the Bellcrank, you need to drop the front lower portion of the chassis, so that's gonna be quite a bit more involved. All right. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that probably would have made more sense to do a time lapse and not a full video and periodically talking, because we're already like 30 minutes in, and this is going to take me probably longer than that if the rear was the easy part. Yeah, we'll see. Brought the camera around here. Hopefully it's a little bit easier if you guys see what I'm doing, but I'm just pulling off the wheels. Oop. Pulling off the wheels. Honestly, I kind of forget how much I need to remove here to get to the Bellcrank. I know these two-wheel drives are just annoying. Like, it's not like the 4x4 where it's in like modules. You know, maybe I will do the, yeah, I'll probably do the front hinge pins. Yeah, sorry, just kind of figuring out what I'm gonna do here. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember if there's a slick way to drop this out or not. Of course, there's a bunch of dirt in my front bumper too. So I think there's three main screws up here, but I know there's a couple hidden under. And of course there's the servo wiring. This thing was perfectly clean before I went to the track, so all this dirt is literally just from the clay track. Boy, did it get packed in there. I thought it would just be a plug near the front, but it's all the way in there. Okay. Yeah, let's just start by getting this out, because I know it's covering at least one screw. So I just took out these two front screws was what I was doing. Now I'm taking out the top bits. Then I'll pull this little bumper subsection off. Because I know there's a screw hiding under there. It goes to the bulkhead. This always gets annoying with the light kit there too. Because I got this wire running through that I don't want to disconnect. Suppose I could, but I don't want to. Yeah, so that comes forward. Yeah, no, I was right. There's two screws there. So my fingers are crossed. I'm hoping I can remove these two, this one, those two, and drop this. Because I think, yeah, I think that should work. Let's have at it, shall we? I just had this out not too long ago to do the shock tower. but I went about it a little differently. I think I just removed, like the front bumper and bulkhead from here. I didn't actually take out this section with all the steering components. So let's leave that one for last. I've already been here at one point when I did the LCG swap, but that was a long time ago as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so my servo wire is pretty tight. Did not leave very much slack in there. I'm gonna crack open the receiver, get that unplugged. So I'm just gonna throw that screw in there just to make sure it doesn't jump on me. Let's see. All right, sorry I did not record that last part. Got a little dicey, but I removed everything from the front assembly. So we're gonna go for our weigh-in here. There is the plastic Bellcrank coming in at 1565. And the aluminum 1695, so only like a gram heavier. Not great. This plastic one's got the big spring in there. Oh yeah, and this one is bushings, whereas this has bearings, so it should be quite a bit smoother. Let's check out servos. So here we go. There is the $38.80. $45.54. So yeah, not gaining as much weight as I was hoping. We'll see though. Hopefully it still helps the steering feel. All right, so I did not record the reassembly here, but got the new servo and Bellcrank in. I just pulled my front brace, so we are gonna scale these out. This is my last hope to gain some weight, and I was actually pretty hopeful for the servo and rack, so I was not expecting much out of this. So I got 1.7 on the little fiberglass stock one, and a whopping 2.94 out of the aluminum. So yeah, it looks like with these mods, I only gained a couple grams, which will be, I don't even think I will notice. I know I will not notice it. But something that occurred to me earlier today that I wish I would have thought of sooner would be doing an aluminum front bulkhead. Now would have been a great time because I just had it all apart, but I bet the aluminum bulkhead will be quite a bit heavier than the plastic one. But yeah, I mean, everybody says that aluminum stuff is super heavy, but that's not always the case. You're not always adding weight with aluminum. So I guess that's something to think about. But really the main thing for me was just helping that steering feel. So we'll have to see, on track next time how it feels. Maybe I'll add the bulkhead before going out on track. But I'll drive it around, see how it feels with the new servo. Now, I didn't show it earlier, but the steering does not feel as smooth as I was hoping with the Bellcrank. It doesn't feel like it's binding anywhere. It's just not very free. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Maybe I should have lubricated something, but I mean, it's got ball bearings top and bottom, so I'm not sure what would have been binding. I put the Teflon washer on the bottom like the instructions said, and that's same as stock. Tried a Teflon washer on top with a steel washer. That compressed the bearings too much, so I took that out and just did a steel washer on top, and that Teflon on bottom. So that's the same as stock. I got the servo hooked up. I set the trim to center. I'm gonna have to probably redo the end points, but let me throw this aluminum brace in, and then we'll come back and do a speed test on the servo. All right, we are all buttoned up here. Got the STRC brace and all the pins in. I did end up using these. Actually, one of them was loose. I didn't think I was having problems with the front ones, but I guess I was. These ones in the center had E-clips, so they were never gonna back off. But of course, you know, I was gonna throw those in. I mean, the brace looks cool. I just think it's really gonna do much. I was hoping it would be heavier. And honestly, I just didn't like the look of the fiberglass one either. Just very old school. Figured it made more sense to have a more modern aluminum one to go with everything else. And I got that little bit of STRC branding for the hinge pins. Yeah, I mean, let's kind of a moment of truth here. I already checked it off camera because I had to set the end points and all that, but here is the steering speed. So yeah, if you can't tell, it's almost like exactly the same. Yeah, I mean, this was supposed to be faster than the stock servo. The 2075X is supposed to be the same, just Metal Gear. 2075R is supposed to be the faster Metal Gear one. I'll play the video back to myself, but I don't know, just kind of looking at it. I don't think it's any heavier or any faster. Heavier though, for some reason it feels kind of heavy to me, I don't know. It's definitely not any heavier though, we weighed everything. Yeah, I mean, a little disappointing. We'll just have to see actually like on track how it feels. Here's something I didn't check. Oh, hey, I mean, the steering feels really tight. I'm not really getting any play at all, so that's good. Hopefully I get more direct steering on track. I mean, I'll probably end up just bashing it before I go out on track again. And really the fear now is I don't have a servo saver. So, you know, I've got the plastic horn, but it's all steel links, so hopefully I don't end up bending anything. That would be sad. I don't really beat on this truck though, so I'm not too worried about it. And then, you know, I've got the Metal Gear servo now, so hopefully I don't strip out the servo. Time will tell. But yeah, I think seeing that I wasn't really able to successfully add any weight to the front, I think I am going to go ahead and order that bulkhead, throw that in. That should make it heavier. But maybe you can kind of see what I mean here is like, these are the lightest springs I could get. You know, it lands well, don't get me wrong, but if you see how much compression the rear gets on landings, this is just very flat and stiff by comparison. You know, it doesn't bounce, so that's good, but it just feels like a little more weight up front would be nice, because then maybe I can play with the preload, because right now I'm fixed. And what I'm hoping is get that front a little lower for more weight. That'll allow me to drop down the rear just a tad, because overall the ride height's a little higher than I would like. But I don't know, we'll see. All right, folks, totaled everything up. Safe to say I was way off with my hopes of getting 100 grams. So we were looking at 1.3 grams weight gain for the Bellcrank, 6.74 grams for the servo. I was really surprised to see the servo weighed that much more than the Bellcrank. 1.24 grams for the brace. Kind of no surprise there. And then 17.81 for the bulkhead. Now that totals up 27.09 grams of added weight. Now I think, I'm glad I got the bulkhead at least, because without that we would have been like around 10 grams. So at least we got more than double that from that bulkhead. You know, I'm still not sure here if I will notice that, you know. Hopefully I notice something. It would be sad if I didn't. But yeah, let's go ahead and throw it back together. So you just saw me, I'm opening up a fresh bottle of disposable Loctite for this. So, you know, it's serious. Don't want those screws backing out. Actually, I'm already making a mess. Let's get a napkin, a paper towel rather. So this is gonna be, yeah, a bit more of an endeavor to put back together just because of how fiddly this will be with all the Loctite, but let's get right into it. So I should just be able to kind of slot that in there. Yeah, it seems to be finding its home relatively well. A little dusty from the track, but not too bad. So let's do this. Prime this first one. Some Loctite. Set that aside for just a second. It's just gonna be this first one. That's the biggest pain here, since I don't really have a good way to support this. Okay, I think that worked. A little bit of the Loctite squeezed out since it had to go through so much of that shock tower. And then again, maybe I shouldn't have put the Loctite all the way at the tip, but oh well. At least the machined threads feel pretty good. Nice and smooth. Don't want to strip out the aluminum here, but should be able to handle a little more torque than the plastic would. Those are good. Now we can raise it back up into position. Seems like there's a good amount of space in here. Let's throw these two. We'll do these top two first. Let me see if I can give you a better angle here. How about that? I apologize if I'm talking too quietly here. I'm in a quiet house and I'm trying not to yell at the phone. And just putting a little bit of Loctite, a little patch, and then careful, SpongeBob, careful. Lower it in. Now this has a lot of threads, or a lot of screws holding it in, so I'm not gonna probably super tighten anything yet, at least until I get the bottom ones in. I'll just get those barely snug. Let's throw these hinge pins in just to kind of get everything in location. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it too here, I've got a lot of aluminum now, so I was never too rough on this thing before, but I definitely can't be rough on it now. Let's flip it over. So yeah, it's these 3 screws right here do the bulk of the work for holding the bulkhead on. Yeah, everything gets locked tight. Looks like I'll need to kind of push it. Yeah, it's a little out of location, but that first one pulled it in. Thanks to these tapered heads, makes it easier. Yeah, each one's kind of pulling it up. Might be using a little too much Loctite here, but I don't want these coming out, man. Okay. Give them a little ugga-dugga. There we go. Actually, let's throw the bumper on while we're down here, shall we? Dirt on there. Definitely recommend keeping like a pick and a toothbrush in your screw kit. This little pick from Harbor Freight's great for getting dirt out of the hex heads. You definitely don't want to stick a driver in a screw that has the head all full up of junk, because you're not getting full bite on it, and you're probably going to end up stripping out that screw head. So I like to use that pick to clear it out, making sure I'm getting full depth. And you pretty much just stick that in there and swirl it around to get it out. There we go. I was maxing on some pretzels earlier, got stuck in my throat. These front bumper screws come really far through the bulkhead there. Oh yeah, let's talk about these. So these are the 2 screws that they included. So button head, the larger M4 screws. I think these are M4 because the smaller are M3. These are the types that are used like in this upper chassis. I think that would actually what these have to be for the upper chassis, but ones I have went in fine. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not going to use them. I heard somebody mentioning that the non-VXL models use different hardware. I thought they said it was for the shock tower, though. So maybe that's what that's for. But all my original hardware seems to be working. And yeah, if you do what I did, make sure you tighten these back up. I almost forgot before I put this back on. And don't mind me, I'm just looking at screw clearances here. I'm surprised that they stick out so far. I mean, they definitely have like enough thread engagement. There's enough material there, but they could have had more. Or maybe I'll have to get shorter screws. I don't know. I guess they would have to be pretty darn short at that point. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have put the bumper on quite yet because I didn't get my hinge pins in. Well, they're in, but I don't have the nut on. Let's rectify that before we get too far along here. Arm feels nice and tight on there. It seems like it took out a good amount of the slop. Let's get this other one going here. Okay. Arms are still moving well. Yeah, we've got a lot of exposed screws coming through there, which again I can't say that I love, but stop overthinking about that. All right, yeah, no, I mean that was pretty much done. Just button up this upper part and we're good to go. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. So now with that front bulkhead, I've replaced the last structural component really. So yeah, maybe I will do that. I'll see how much a screw kit is for a 2-wheel drive slash, because that's the one thing I won't have, is because I reused all the hardware. Get a screw kit for a 2-wheel drive slash, and then I should be able to essentially build another one. I'll just get some turnbuckles and some hubs, some front hubs, or like spindle. The front axle, like the stub axle, you know what I mean. And then, yeah, I'll be good to go. So yeah, the real question now, and one thing I was hoping for with adding weight, is how my front ride height is gonna change. Because I was talking about how my front is essentially as low as it will go right now. The preload collars are all the way up. I've got the softest and shortest springs that I can run. So I'm at minimum ride height. Now, adding more weight would push the front suspension down, giving me a new minimum. And that would then allow me to lower the rear a little bit, because the rear has a ton of preload, so I can go way lower in the rear. Because my goal is basically to get the whole truck sitting like just a couple millimeters lower, like really just a small amount lower, and then I'll be happy. I love the ride height of my 4x4 slash, and this thing's just sitting quite a bit higher than that. No, I guess not quite a bit higher. It's sitting marginally higher, but it's enough that I notice it and don't like it. So now I gotta throw these wheels on. The new front end's looking nice though, huh? Orange Bellcrank, the black servo, the gunmetal tie bar and bulkhead, all the black hinge pins. Getting fancy. Yeah, so, okay, you see me playing with the slot like I always do. So what I'm seeing here is it looks like the outer C-hub has some play on the hinge pin. That's enough to let it rotate a little bit is what I'm seeing. Not seeing any steering slop though, it's just in the hinge pins. All right, I'm gonna cut the video here, and then we're gonna do some ride height testing, see if the weight made a difference. Okay, we're all back on the ground. Let's see, did the ride height change? No. So, yeah, see, that's what I was just trying to close that gap a little bit. So I was looking at the numbers again, and essentially with the weight that I added, so I added a total weight of 27.09 grams. The factory bulkhead was 25.71. So it's essentially like if I just did nothing but just like zip tied the factory bulkhead on the front end, that would be the same thing as what I just did. So yeah, pretty insignificant change in weight here. Because yeah, essentially what I have is just like that teeny bit of forward rake. But I just wanted to get no wheel gap in the rear, close the front up. Like, I would be stoked if my front ride height was like that. Let's see if it'll even let me do it. No, not quite, but I don't know. You kind of get it. It's not like my ride height's crazy high because I essentially have the arms level in the rear. But I would like to have the drive shaft level, so the arms just slightly below parallel. Got some good droop now though, huh? Not too bad. So, I mean, really, I guess I got kind of fixated on the weight here, but the main reason why I did all this was to improve the steering feel. So while the weight may not have affected ride height, hopefully more weight up front will allow it to pivot off the front more, and the faster, stronger servo coupled with the servo saver eliminator, the aluminum bell crank, all that's tighter. So we'll have to go out and drive it, see how the steering feels. And then also I'm just excited for these hinge pins too. I won't have hinge pins backing out frequently. That's ended my day short a few times if I didn't have a tool, or just ended it due to frustration of having to keep tightening it. And yeah, and the aluminum looks nice too, right? But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this video. I'm not going to drive it right now, but I promise you next time you see this truck out on one of our bashing videos, I'll make some comments on how the steering feels. So hopefully we'll see some positives in the real world. But until then, I hope this video was entertaining, maybe a little informative. But yeah. Well, take care, and I'll see you next time. All right, I lied. I'm back. I just can't stop poking around. Can't help myself. So I was wondering more about like the weight distribution, right? So I'm trying to find the center of mass on it from the Nerf bars. So I'm kind of putting one finger on each Nerf bar here. And if I pick it up dead center on the Nerf bars, it's tipping to the front a little bit. So if I scooch it just a little more, got pretty, like, yeah, I would say that's the center of mass right there where my fingertip is. So, I don't know, it might be kind of pseudoscience, but you're looking at, it's definitely from the center of the wheelbase. I'm just kind of eyeballing it right now, maybe. What do we think? Is that the center of the wheelbase? Just about. So it's definitely a rear bias still. It's not too surprising given that, you know, the motor's hanging off the rear axle and all that. I wish I would have done this before now. It would have been pretty interesting to see because, yeah, we didn't add very much weight, but it's all pretty far forward. It's, you know, in line or slightly behind the front axle. But we're pretty even. I mean, as soon as I start going to the more forward on the Nerf bars, So kind of the front, inside the front corner of the Nerf bar, we're back to the rear. So yeah, the center of mass is pretty close to the center of the Nerf bars, but those obviously aren't centered. And then something else I was thinking about was kind of my spring rate bias, because that was the other thing, is trying to get the right spring rates with how different the front and rear bias is. I guess now we know it's definitely rearward. So I was sitting here poking on the battery. Excuse me. So if you're poking on the essentially where the center of mass is, we're getting more rear compression than front. And we kind of creep up. I'm poking on the battery right now, basically. Now we're getting a little more front, a little more. Now kind of at the front of the pack, that feels like it's kind of equally compressing the front and the rear. So what does that mean? The center of the suspension load or whatever is forward from the center of mass. So without thinking too much about lever arms and stuff, to me that tells me that my front springs are still too stiff or the rear springs are too soft. I mean, when you pick it up and drop it, you definitely see like the rear end compresses a lot and the front end just kind of hits. So yeah, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of both. The rear probably is too soft and the front probably is too stiff. But like I said, I've got the stiffest rear springs and the softest front springs. So I'm kind of at a dead end there. But if we think about that more, if that's the case, that would mean that if my front's too stiff, I've got less front grip. The rear's soft, there's more rear grip. So that would explain some of the pushing that I'm getting, or the understeer. Because understeer is just having less front grip than rear grip. So yeah, that adds up. Yeah, I don't really know what that tells you, but I thought it was kind of interesting finding the center of mass. So there you go, a little bonus. But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next bashing video.